podcast focused on trends shaping the future of manufacturing. I'm Alexandria Burek, your host, here with A.W. Schultz, two thought leaders with a passion for people and manufacturing. Today and every episode, we are diving deep into the advancements, sustainable practices, and dynamic changes transforming how we produce everything.
And now welcome Alexandria Burek and A.W. Schultz.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Factory of the Future podcast. I'm here with A.W. Schultz. I'm excited to talk about 2030. I'm fired up. We just got done recording our second half of the 2025s. And I said, we're getting 2030 done right now. We're just getting it done. So here we are. I'm bringing this energy to this next episode talking about 2030. A lot of the trends that we talked about towards the end of 2020s carry in and get magnified throughout the 2030s. That's our prediction. That's what we think. That's what's been evidenced by the experts and the guests we've had on the show so far. So a couple of things that we see coming in 2030. Number one, dark factories, lights out factories, whatever you want to call them, go from, wow, this is novelty and new, to the norm. And that is driven by the lack of labor and the advanced automation. So what we're going to see is a lot less people in factories, a lot more automation, a lot more robotics, and probably people traveling to various factories or using VR and AR from a remote location to train or walk unskilled laborers through the steps so that you use your knowledge from a remote location and you kind of step-by-step guide somebody through the troubleshooting of that specific piece of machinery. So that's number one. Number two, we think that domestic supply chain is going to become more stable and for the most important things. So things coming back to the U.S. in 2030, would be things like semiconductors, pharmaceuticals, defense relevant goods. So like we talked about in with the China minerals situation, how that could literally really put us in a bad place from a defense standpoint. We're going to bring a lot of that stuff back to the U.S. Consumer goods, not going to happen. That's going to stay offshore. And we talked about this with Rosemary. You know, that's the kind of stuff that makes sense to do from, a global perspective. But the things that we are reliant on should be made here in the U.S. AW, what are your thoughts so far?
Produce might be more readily available and made local because we're finding very different ways of improving how we can make things anywhere, and it's especially saves on a lot of energy costs when we're making them domestic or within our region. So that was one of the things that came up to my mind when you were talking about that. But I'm sorry, go on.
No, I'm glad you bring that up, and that's something I'm really passionate about. I believe that we need to control our food supply. We're really at risk by, I don't even know what's going on here. I don't know who came up with this idea of like taking chickens and sending them to overseas and then bringing the chickens back to get them packaged. Like, why are we doing this? I don't understand that. It doesn't seem to make sense to me. And frankly, you could probably talk more about this with your food manufacturing and processing background. But one of the things I learned and heard is that a lot of people who are in these mass factories for producing food run a high rate of risk of injury on the job because they're expected to turn so fast. Like whatever it may be with the chickens, whether it's like putting them in the conveyor belt to death or it's plucking the feathers and doing all the other stuff that goes with processing these animals. It seems like those jobs would be great if we could figure out a way to automate those, since there's such high risk of injury and they expose not only the worker but the business to these kinds of risks. So What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, it has changed. It has changed. I mean, when I came out of college, I was working as a supervisor, and we brought in processed meat all the way from Texas, and I was living in St. Paul at the time. And part of what they had to do is they had to cut it, put it in shredders, and it would mix it up. But there was a couple instances where one of the men lost his fingers because it got into a mixer and it tore it off, and it tore it off. It didn't cut it off. It tore it off. And then I remember working in consulting in the chemicals industries, and it became a common thing. Like, when's the last time we died here? Because it was. And I can tell you, I've been at places recently that they said nobody ever has. So I think we've gotten better at it. But one of the things that's very evident is if it can be automated, it's going to be automated. And I think we're talking about 2030s. We might be start talking 2040s right now, that especially in the U.S., that automation is going to take hold of it, especially if we're having troubles filling some of these positions. Because in the 2030s, you're going to have some kind of technical ability to work in the industry. And we were off the air, and we were really getting into the discussions about the quality of an education. And I don't know if I think we recorded this. That we did. That certifications becomes more important than a degree. And honestly, if you're a C-suite or somebody else, and I mentioned that I remember interviewing people, and I just thought they were just smart, the best, great candidates, but I couldn't hire them because they didn't have a 4-year degree, and it is just completely upsetting to me when something like that happens.
I can't agree more. And I'll tell you, not only that, what personally infuriates me is this idea that so many people, so many students, so many young people are just being put on the conveyor belt of life, of American life, and just at mass transported and shoved into the college education system when their families don't have the means to pay for it. They don't have the means individually to pay for it. And they're just doing it on autopilot. They're not even really thinking, because that's what the elementary and high school just is constantly pushing. So I hope that there's a change in the messaging throughout the, formative years of our youth and our future children. My prediction about who still goes and who doesn't, like I said, like we talked about, students who are getting professional degrees. We can't have doctors and lawyers and engineers and nurses and all of those people who quite literally need extensive training to do their jobs well, and where there's a safety or very specific skill set that needs to be developed and needs to be passed down from generation to generation. Those people still go. Wealthy people go. The people from wealthy families are just going to go, like I said, it's going to be the equivalent of like a gap year, but like 4 years. It's going to be fun. The other group of people, I think, is more athletes, right? So the people who are the potential, professional athletes of our, society. Those people will go to college. Everybody else is going to probably, hopefully, reorient around this whole idea. What is your thought, AW? I can see you have something in your mind.
Academic. Just a quick break, and then we'll get right back to the show. We are always open for meaningful sponsorship or guests that align with our audience. If your brand fits and would like to be on one of the top 10% podcasts in the world, let's chat. Reach out by email in the show notes. Back to the show. And just give a preface for this is like, you and I both have degrees. I'm working on my doctorate's degree right now, and with the hopes of just building up credibility and maybe become a professor. And so we're distant the academics, but we see it from both sides. And from a manufacturing perspective, there's some great careers out there that can be had with minimal costs and in a short amount of time, that you can spend your entire life doing something that can support your family
Meaningful.
and not be in debt.
Yeah. I have a particularly contrarian view, and I speak from a very privileged place. So I will come out and say that, like, my family paid for all of my college education. I did go to a 4-year in-state college. Between my parents and my grandparents, I graduated with $0 in student loans. And I think back when I went, my degree probably cost me about 40 grand a year, and I went for 4 years, 20 to 40 grand a year. So I don't know what that math is because I didn't learn that in college, but probably about $100,000 or more they invested in my career and my college education. But I fought them the whole way. I had asked them to quit. I was like, this is a waste of money. Just give me the money and I'll go do something else with it. But that's I have a very contrarian view about education going all the way from the beginning, and we could do a whole episode on that. But
2030.
What's that?
I said the 2030s. I'm with you, but I think we're
back to 2030s. Yes. So what we think is going to happen is that skills-based hiring is going to erode the degree requirement for some white-collar jobs. So, to what you just said, those candidates that you interviewed that just because they didn't have that stamp of a 4-year degree approval or stamp of a college education, those people are going to be hired. What I think, and this is totally out of my own brain, my own prediction, I think part-time work needs to re-enter the picture. Ooh. And I'll give you one example. Nobody's talking about this, but one of my friends, very successful attorney, he has been mostly retired because he didn't want to work 50, 60, 70 hours a week anymore. He had the money to retire. He was very diligent with his money. He was constantly getting approached by law firms and offered these great salaries, but the requirement was work 60, 70 hours a week, basically. He said, hey, hire me, pay me half the salary, and I'll work half of the hours. And they said no. Well, the same law firm that was trying to hire him 3 years ago still contacted him another 3 years later with the same offer. And he goes, let me repeat myself. Hire me part-time, hire me for half the hours and half the salary. So theoretically, if that law firm would have taken him up on the part-time role, they would not have had to pay all of his benefits. They would have had someone doing at least 50% of the work that they still haven't found somebody to do in the last 3 years. And, things would move forward. The company I work for, we have these administrative job functions that we don't have enough to support a full-time person and headcount and expense, but would be perfect for a part-time person. But for some reason, in the last 20 years, it seems like you're either full-time or no time. You're either working or you're not. Where are the part-time jobs in corporate America and in businesses? Because 2 part-time employees could do 1 full-time job, and you avoid the benefits that you would normally pay a full-time person. So I don't know where businesses' heads are at on this one.
So maybe we're talking 2040 now. Maybe that's...
No, that's 2030.
You think 12?
That's 2030. Oh yeah, we're already moving to the gig economy.
American work. So I mean, in Europe, it's 34 hours. I mean, in the U.S., I remember those days.
I really think there's a small portion. I think there's a small portion of people who are actually working 40 hours at their corporate jobs. If you look at what they actually do.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's they're
I think
time in the clock. Yeah. They're at the work that many hours, but their value added work is very minimum. And the stay home kind of maximizes like what happier life, happier satisfaction.
What other predictions do you have for? I was going to ask you, what are your other predictions for 2030?
Very specifically, additive. Did we talk about additive manufacturing, 3D printing?
We did not. We talked about it before we started recording. So why don't you take us through that?
Yeah. So the idea is, and I'm obsessed because we had Justin on, and they specialize in 3D printing, and I was just like blown away because I wanted to talk about it so much, like manufacturing storerooms that make their own parts. And you can't make it all, but just think about the inventory levels that you can digress. If we're talking about 3D printers in the storerooms, or making the packaging on site, because that was one of the things that Justin talked about, is that, and I didn't realize that it's not so much it can't be done, it's the time it takes, and they can't mass produce it really fast right now. So that's something I think it's going to make some value added in the future of it. Certainly cobots, employees working together with robots, and you mentioned artificial intelligence and what did you say? AI and RI?
Automation is going to be like the requirement to survive.
When we have specialists throughout the world that can support any multiple areas, and I'm seeing that already, and I can imagine, because we kind of circle around this stuff, we kind of keep on top of it. So that's something that I think the novice person is going to start recognizing in the 2030s.
One question that ties into all of these 2030 predictions in a very specific way to you, and I didn't prep you for this, so this is totally just came into my head. Do you think in 2030 it will become common practice for engineers to be hired by multiple manufacturing companies or facilities and serving, so basically they have a whole set of clients. Mm-hmm. They either are solopreneurs or consultants or whatever, and they are employed by multiple on almost like a subscription model where they're like part-time accessible, like almost like people do fractional CFO, fractional whatever. Do we think fractional engineers in the future for 2030?
Maybe. And I'm going to say maybe because...
Oh, come on. That's cop out.
No. Okay. I'm going to say it should be. It absolutely should be. But I can tell you, as a person that worked for Pepsi, and we would bring in contractors that work for Pepsi, but we could not talk to Coke. And we had to sign an NDA. We couldn't work with them.
Yeah.
But we're using the same equipment, and the guys would come in. It's like, the guys down the street wearing the red, this is what they're doing. Like, well, really? Well, let's write that down. And there's no reason, and I'm using this as a specific example because there's no reason why we shouldn't be correlating together. I get the marketing portion of it and the sales portion of it, but the manufacturing portion of these beverages, we should be aligned on it. I mean,
rising tides raise all boats, right?
Yeah, Dr. Pepper makes Pepsi co-packs for Dr. Pepper, and so does Coke co-pack for Dr. Pepper. And
Dr. Pepper just sitting squarely in the middle of this rivalry.
And I said maybe because I just don't think that's going to be changing in the next couple of years, and it just doesn't make sense to me. But that's the way it should be, especially to maximize an engineer, especially if you get somebody good, to have somebody good, and then you have them on your dial tone. And I mean, you shared the examples of contracting. Yeah, it's I think it's. I mean, that's kind of where I'm at right now. I mean, they contract me out. They use me when they want.
Yeah.
But
yeah. Cool. All right. Well, that's what we think about 2030 in a nutshell. So with that, hope you guys have a great day, and we're out of here like finished goods.
This is Factory of the Future, and we are out of here like finished goods. Stay tuned for our next episode of Factory of the Future, where we're exploring groundbreaking techniques and behaviors that are reshaping industrial landscapes. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review and help others discover the cutting-edge insights transforming manufacturing as we know it.